Let's move on to the metabolic types. Kristen, you can answer this because sometimes you don't have to be overweight or obese or have, a huge waist circumference and still have fatty liver. So maybe go through the different stages.
Yeah, sure. So, kind of going back to our discussion, looking at the inability of BMI to predict healthiness. We have this stigma. I've seen it as a dietitian. We have this stigma that if your scale says a certain number or the BMI says a certain number, that you are deemed unhealthy. And so what we have found with the studies and the data that we comb through is that that's not always necessarily the case. So for example, one of the metabolic types is an individual that has a normal waist circumference, but their metabolic numbers may be abnormal. So hemoglobin A1C, which we've referenced a few times, or they have high blood pressure, or they have a low HDL, right? Any of those components, they are at risk for non-alcoholic fatty liver disease because of those metabolic numbers. And really, we're kind of talking about the skinny fat individual, right? So even though they might not have a waist circumference that's really worrisome, they're probably not carrying a lot of muscle. There's something going on metabolically speaking. So that would be kind of one bucket. We have individuals that we wanted to address that their waist circumference is normal, but their metabolic numbers are also normal, but perhaps they have genetic risk. We cited a study looking at individuals whose mothers had fatty liver or insulin resistance or gestational diabetes while they were in utero, and the risk to them once they were born and going into adolescence and adulthood. So their risk is a bit higher. So they might be completely normal, but a slightly higher risk because of what occurred there. Of course, then we have individuals where their metabolic numbers might be completely normal, but waist circumference is high. So not to say they're a ticking time bomb, but the chances that those numbers will start inching in a direction we don't want to see, of course, is higher. And then the most aggressive plans we would have for someone high waist circumference and then high risk for any kind of component of metabolic syndrome, type 2 diabetes being one of them, which we have discussed multiple times already. So really, it's looking at the severity of who you are as a person related to your liver risk. And then based on that, how do you want to look at a dietary approach? So that's really kind of where we put everything together. The base of everything we discuss is really the base of the Mediterranean diet. There's very few studies that can beat it in terms of reversal of fibrosis and fatty liver disease. And then we just take that base and look at the carb content from there based on that metabolic type.